Hello everybody, and welcome to the very first video on this channel. My name is Laura, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my awakening experience. I know that when I was first going through this, I went through YouTube videos and books and all this stuff, so I wanted to give another perspective so that if you're going through this, there's a little bit more information out there for you. I'm so nervous about this. I don't know why I'm so nervous about this. In the beginning, all right, the awakening story starts. I was raised in a Christian household, and so I was going with my sister to a Christian concert at a church. And near the end of the concert, they invited everybody to give their hearts to the Lord, to say this prayer. I was like, you know what, I've been Christian my whole life. I'm baptized. I'll just say this prayer along with people. When I said this prayer, I just opened up and expanded. It was just felt huge. I just felt this love. I felt unconditionally loved. And I don't even know how to explain it. I don't think anybody can explain it super well because it's limiting doing it with words. And then they say, okay, if you've just said the prayer, go with these people and these counselors to the other room. And my sister's like, you need to go. So I went to this other room thinking, okay, maybe somebody else has had this experience too. Maybe I'm not the only one that's just had like this life-altering big opening happen. And I was the only one that was having that experience. I'm in the corner of this little room just bawling, like, I'm so loved. And the counselors are like, yeah, you are. Here's a pamphlet. You can go back to the concert now, because they didn't quite know how to be with that. So I go back to the concert, and afterwards I'm just different. I don't know how to explain it. That hole in my heart was gone. I felt like I never was really alone. I also had all this, like, just this feeling of being like a lava lamp, of things kind of like moving through me energetically inside. I mean, I was already a little emotionally unstable before this happened. And so when it did happen, things didn't necessarily get better. It felt a little bit like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me, but there was, instead of falling on the floor, I fell into nothing. And I was like, what is this? What happened? And so I thought, of course, since it had been in a Christian setting, that this was what being born again was like. And so, you know, that's kind of true, but what being born again meant in the context of most Christian texts I was reading at the time was, oh, you just said that prayer and now you're a Christian. It wasn't this experience that I had. And so you got to put it a little bit in perspective. When I was 15, the internet was a new thing. You couldn't be on the internet at the same time as being on the phone because it went through the phone line, and it made weird noises when you hooked up to the internet. Like, that's how old I am. There wasn't much in the way of things I could look up online to figure out what had happened, and everything that I found that was about being born again was like, I just gave my heart to the Lord and all of my problems were solved. And I threw that book across the wall like, none of my problems have been solved. It has brought up more problems, because all of my old traumas were coming up to be faced and to be healed, but I didn't know this. I had no context for what had happened. I didn't know what an awakening was. I had no idea how to get through it. I had no tools for which to get through it. The idea of what I thought was real and what should be happening, and the reality of what actually was happening didn't mesh. And I was so attached to that idea that I suffered a lot. I was missing school. I was miserable. My mom didn't know what to do with me. I was just having a lot of problems. I was in pain, and I'm like, how do I make this stop? And so I managed to shove it down. I was like, okay, either I'm really pretty functionally crazy and I can just fake it and get through life, or one day I'll find some information and be able to process this. And I'm really glad it was the second one. Spoilers. I wouldn't say that this awakening ever went away. It was more like a beach ball that came like out of the water, and then I was like, no, beach ball, go back down into the water. And then I managed to like sit on the beach ball and balance pretty well to keep it shoved down. However, fast forward almost 20 years. I'm married. I have a little kid, and this starts to kind of bubble up from under the surface. So I started reading some books, and I don't even know how I got to this book, but I found this book by Michael Singer, and on the back it described his awakening experience. And when I read that, I was like, that's it. That's what happened to me. Oh my God, there's a word for it, and I can Google this word. I was like, yes. And look at all of this information that's now on the internet that is no longer tied to the phone line and is super fast now. So then I just went into all this information and read books and found teachings of spiritual teachers online. And I'm like, yes, this is what I've been looking for so long. And this is kind of what my experience has been like. And I found actually a book from Adyashanti about what to do after awakening. And I'm like, that book was made for me. I think it's called Dancing with Emptiness. I'll have to double check that. But I'll put some links down below to the different things that I'm referring to here. So Michael also mentions in his book going to Buddhist Zen meditations. And I'm like, oh, you know, I live in a fairly big city. Maybe there's a Zen meditation group in around here. So I look that up and I start going to that group. And I actually do run into one or two people that also had awakenings. I'm way too afraid to actually say anything about my awakening experience, but you know, here we are on the internet and I'm just sharing it with everybody. So it comes around. And as I'm starting to get into spirituality and find all this information, my life starts to fall apart, like burn to the ground. There's this whole list of all these things that just went incredibly long. I lost friends. I was sued. I'm going to make a video about my experience with narcissists a little later. Look for that. I had a miscarriage. I got pregnant again right away, but then I had seizures while I was pregnant with my second one. And my mom got breast cancer, and it was the hardest year of my life. And it still has some charge to it, apparently. And really, this is just a falling away of all the things that were done and had served their purpose, and it was time for them to move on to, but I was clinging to them, and I realized now that what it was doing was taking away the things, because otherwise I would have just been living the same day, the same week, the same month, the same year over and over again. And I didn't actually want that, but I was so accustomed to how things were going that I thought, oh, this is just what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Spirit had other plans. I was in so much pain that I was like, I need help. I need some help. So as I'm going through a podcast that I had been listening to for quite a while now, I just randomly shoot through it and I'm like, okay, this one. And it was an interview with a spiritual teacher. And as he's telling his story, and it's nothing that he was talking about was sad. It was very just casual, but I'm crying. Just tears are just straight flowing right from my eyes. I felt like I had forgotten something really important. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach out to that guy. So I reach out to that guy and set up one-on-one sessions with him. And the very first time I sat with him, afterwards, the energy was just going. And it was a basic introduction kind of session. I felt different afterwards. I felt that lava lamp experience of things shifting energetically. And then came the fire hose. So this is sort of what I feel like is the hallmark of awakening, is where it feels like this energy is just through you. So it felt like a fire hose amount of energy is trying to go through a garden hose amount of space in me. It felt simultaneously like being on fire and like being held under rushing water that was going through me. This would get worse as if I focused on things, I could kind of make sure I didn't have that getting in the way of what I was experiencing. But if I was like just relaxed, it would really kick up. So meditation was just really intense for a while. I'm having all of this energy come through me and it's bringing up all of this trauma at the same time as I'm having my life feel like it's burning down around me. I was miserable. I would have my sessions with my teacher, and then I would, for days, just cry for hours. I was so tired. I was pregnant at the time, and all this energy is going through me, and I'm weak from having to sustain that other life. I'm weak from all of the depression that I'm processing, but at least now I finally have support. I have a wonderful, loving husband. I have a great teacher that's walking me through this process, and that made so much difference. So if you are going through a hard time with your awakening, please go and get some help. And as these traumas are coming up and I'm letting them release, they're no longer informing my decisions on a day-to-day basis. I feel so much freer. I feel so much more expansive. I can deal with the world much more easily. Things can still happen. Yeah, the narcissist is being a jerk, and yeah, the finances are really hard, but I know I'm going to be able to work through it. So then I sign up for a shamanic class. I felt like this calling to do that. I'd always been kind of in touch with spirit on that level. I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to learn how to really interact with that. So I took this class, and it's several months. And a couple months into this class, they do a ceremony with you. And in this ceremony, I didn't feel anything really grand during it, but afterwards, the next day, I go to work, and I go home, and I start shaking. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to lay down, and it'll maybe I just haven't eaten enough. I'm not sure why I'm shaking. And it's full body fish flopping on the bed shaking. But if I can keep my mind empty, it stops. But if I have to concentrate on something, talk to somebody, or read, or focus, it starts up again. So it's about a couple hours, and it fades out. Okay, that was weird. Okay, and I go to work the next day, and then I come home. And again, it happens, and I lay in bed, and I just let it. I feel like this energy is going through me, and it's just hitting things. And it's not only is it hitting things, now it's shaking me. Like, pretty severely, and I'm trying to figure out on my own how to solve these problems. However, nothing works, because the next day, same thing. Come home, I shake for hours. On the fourth day, I something breaks, and I can't stop shaking. It's all day Friday. I'm shaking, waves of these shakes. I'm shaking hundreds of times. And my husband's like, you need to go see somebody. Oh, and I'm like, okay, fine. We'll go see some. But we're going to a normal doctor first to see if this is just something really silly, like I need to get like more zinc or something. So I go to the normal doctor, and she looks at me like, you should go to the emergency room. And I'm not sure why you took this long to not go to the emergency room. And so we go to the emergency room. They pump me full of anti-seizure medication. It doesn't stop a thing. I'm still shaking. And I go home. They send me home. And the next day, I'm still shaking. And we go to the emergency room. And this time, they pump me full of anti-stress medication. And I am loopy. At first, I pass out. And I'm really, I conk out. And I'm out for hours. And then I wake up. And I am loopy. We went to the grocery store, and I'm like a little kid, like wandering around and like, oh, we should get this cookie. And I'm still shaking, though. That's the thing that they pumped all this medication in me over the course of this weekend, and 2 times that I went to the emergency room, and I'm still shaking continuously. And I'm like, well, crap. And so they were like, well, this is not epileptic seizures, and you should go see a therapist, because this is just in your head. And I'm like, this is in my head? And I get it. I guess stress can do a lot of weird things. And I am very glad that I went to see a medical professional to make sure that it wasn't something like Parkinson's or, any other thing that was like a serious neurological condition. After seeing a therapist and several neurologists and all kinds of doctors, and none of them, at best I got, I don't know what this is, and I think you should go see this person. So doctors couldn't find anything that was decisively wrong with me, nor could they give me any medications that would stop this. For 5 days, I was shaking uncontrollably from the time I woke up in the morning to the time I went to bed. I didn't shake in my sleep. I was shaking like full body, and then my head would kind of get stuck up for a little bit. It didn't hurt, but it looked really bad to the people around me. They were a little uncomfortable being around me during this time. Like this rush, it felt like electricity, and it would jolt through me, and it would hit things along the way, which was causing these spasms. So 5 days, it starts to go down a little bit. Now I'm just having, instead of having hundreds, I'm having like just 100 of these spasms. My husband and I just decided I'm not going to drive. I'm not going to drive when I'm in this condition. I don't think it's reliable. And I was so exhausted from all of these spasms and all of this energy going through me. I couldn't watch my kids. I lost my job. I couldn't work. This shaking, on a good day, I'd be able to get out of bed and take a shower, and that was it. That lasted about 2.5 months. And then it started to ease up again gradually, and I got to the point where I could get out of bed and I could watch the kids and I could do a little bit of work. And then it took over a year before the shaking would stop. It still happens every once in a while where the energy is coming up and I can feel it coming up and it just kind of shakes, but it's just maybe once or twice in a day, every once in a while. So it's a lot better. Nowadays, I do still feel like there's a lot of this energy just coming through, but it's not hitting as much as it used to, and it's not shaking me like it used to, and I'm able to live life, and I'm able to get out of bed and do things, and there's so much more openness. So let me leave you with like a couple of tips for if you are going through this. Tip number 1, take care of yourself physically. So make sure you're getting sleep. You're gonna need maybe a lot more sleep. Maybe you'll have insomnia and you won't be able to sleep at all, and you'll just be tired all day. There's a lot of weird things that happen with this. So drink water, eat healthy foods, take baths, like Epsom salt baths. I love those. Those have been great for me. And give yourself time. Give yourself time to process everything that's happening. That's the biggest thing you can do for yourself, is instead of running away from it and contracting and be like, I don't want to deal with that, you just need to sit and be with it. Tip number 2, go get yourself some help. I can't number the amount of people that came and just watched my kids so I could go to sleep, so that I could just cry for hours. The family and friends, my husband, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for him. He took on the housework, watching the kids, and a full-time job while I was going through this, and he got a lot of help from spiritual teachers, and mostly from the spiritual teacher that I still see, and I've been seeing for 3 years. This process lasted like 3 years. Yay! Okay, tip number 3, surrender. Just let it go. Just go with this energy. It's unpleasant at times, but if you resist it, it makes it more unpleasant, and you can shove it down. I am living proof that you can shove it down, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you surrender to it, like you bring up all these traumas and you finally deal with them, you finally heal them, and you get this freedom and you feel this love like you've never felt before. And so the takeaway is, it sounds like it was miserable experience, and there's definitely some times where I was like, is this gonna kill me? But I'm really glad it happened, because now I have all this freedom, and I feel so much more love, and like everything's just so much deeper, and I know that I can deal with anything that comes my way, because man, I've dealt with some things, and now I know I can deal with anything. So please engage. I'd love to hear if you have gone through awakening. If you've gotten through it, what got you through it? What are some of the tips that you'd have for people if you are going through it, or if you're more curious and more? I'll put some questions down there. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, much love to everybody, and thank you so much for watching the video. Bye.